basin or
Kind of
whatever you
plan B,
call it.
right?
It's not catch, it's not really catch basin.
You are recording, Steve.
Anyway,
Existing storm drain, flows in the building, topography, Lynn to correcting this now by routing
Pretty good, how are
around.
you?
Will topography, Lynn correcting this now by routing around building to reach new PVC storm drain. What size is the new
The building's already
PVC
there.
storm drain? Topography, we already talked about that. Side erosion control, they talked about, they showed silt fence, so it says is site, it's missing site erosion control, but it shows silt fence.
that's handled by,
Glenn,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, temporary settlement fence.
I didn't see any issues with it at all. I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, if there's something I missed or something you were concerned about, that's a different story.
It's fine, it's found me, I'm sure Glenn will. Everyone turn on your mics, please. I'd like to call this meeting of the Kingston Municipal Planning Commission. Mr. Williams, can you call the roll, please?
Chairwoman Wright,
Here.
Secretary Pickle,
Here.
Mayor Neal,
Here.
Mr. Bachman, Mr. Clifton, Mr. Frog,
Here.
Mr. Qualls,
Here.
Mr. Lovin, Mr. Owens,
Present.
Mr. Tipton.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum, we can proceed.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to reports. The only thing I have to report is over the weekend, the city of Kingston received the Small City Progress Award from the Tennessee Municipal League. So I would like to thank everybody on this board and city council and city employees working towards moving the city along to have this well-deserved award. Mayor, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Mr. City Manager? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Any other committees? Zoning? Anything? Significance? Mayor?
No.
Okay. The next thing on our agenda is to set aside time to hear from the public. Is there anyone here wanting to speak to Planning Commission? Oh, minutes. Sorry. If everyone's had a chance to look over the minutes, if there's no deletions or additions, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Tipton,
Second.
second by Mr. Pickle.
Chair Wright,
Yes.
Secretary Pickle,
Yes.
Mayor Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Frog,
Yes.
Mr. Qualls,
Yes.
Mr. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Tipton.
Ah.
Passed unanimously.
Thank you, sir. Now, if there's anyone here from the public that would like to speak that's not already on the agenda, seeing none, we'll move on to, before we move on, we need to add to the end of the agenda an additional item of electing a vice chair. So we'll do that after our last agenda item on the list. Okay, agenda item number 5, site plan, proposed parking lot for Mitch Lemons at 104 Spencer Street. Mr. Williams, do you have any comments before we begin?
No, I've read the report, looked at the site plan, I've been to the site actually, and, it looks to me like he's met all the requirements, as I understand it, as I look at the site plan, there's not gonna be any grading, and there's already quite a bit of impervious soil, and that is not impervious, is not really
Okay.
It's been packed down and that sort of thing.
Okay.
It may not be asphalt.
All right.
So anyway, I think everything's in order. I've seen David Beverly's work before, and, the report seems to be in order, and there's not really gonna be any changes. The parking spaces measure out
Mm-hmm.
with the backup area being sufficient. And so therefore, I'll go ahead and recommend that, the site plan be approved.
Are there any additional comments? Anyone? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mayor Neal.
If it makes you feel better, excuse me, I talked to Glenn Cofer about this, he's reviewed this, and he's good with it.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Frog.
Chair Wright,
Yes.
Secretary Bickle,
Yes.
Mayor Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Frog,
Yes.
Mr. Qualls,
Yes.
Mr. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Tipton,
Aye.
unanimous, Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Lemons, can I ask what you plan on doing with this piece of property back there? Or what's going in?
As far as I know, as of right now, the customer is using it for his own personal use. Now, that may change, but he's also, he's got property in front of it, it's a little short strip mall that faces Kentucky Street to access that parking lot, and he's using it for additional parking
Oh,
for
good.
his, people that lease the building.
Okay,
They park in back, he's trying to make it a little easier for them.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next agenda item is continued discussion of RV zoning regulations.
Chair, just to introduce it a little bit, I went ahead and took all the suggestions that were made at the last meeting. I hope I got all of them. And Kelly was nice enough to send me a
Copy.
copy so I could look through, well, I could watch it.
Watch it over.
Yeah, and make sure I got everything. Hopefully they're there. We can add or subtract anything or start over or anything that the planning commission would like to do. But anyway, I tried to give you a copy that I hope helps us with this endeavor. I've got a couple extra copies here if anybody.
Does everybody have a copy?
I'd like to have one, please.
Mr. Owens, did you not get your packets this week?
I do not recall receiving.
Okay.
Thank you. I put a couple of notes at the top. This is small type, but the discussed conditions that we talked about are in key appointments, which is bigger than the standard 12. And actually highlighted, it may not show a highlighted on my copy with yellow marker. But the deletions are strike through. And then I put a note in there that I tried to run the enforcement section with of Meigs County that we talked about, and I think several commissioners liked, through Mr. Cofer.
Mhm.
Since he would be in charge of much of the enforcement as for the chief
Mhm.
here in Kingston. But anyway, I talked to him today, and he might, if he can make it, he may come to this meeting, but he said if he did, he would be late. So, he didn't have any real comments at that time when I talked to him on the phone earlier today.
Okay. Well, the only thing that I was got to thinking about after Mr. Varney came to see us was the section that we are adding of permanent structures, including roofs, decks, steps, storage facilities, and similar structures that are not allowed on any RV site. I still agree with that stance, but in looking at his site plan and speaking with him, there was a portion of the RV park that he had proposed that they were wanting to build what's called casitas on some of the lots. They would be premium sites. It's almost like an outdoor room, additional area on that lot. I wish I had an example to show of what that meant. So I didn't know if there was a way that we could word this, because I still don't want long-term rent. Of course, as far as this goes, it's not showing any long-term rentals of anything over 29 days. So I'm not sure the verbiage that would need to be used to exclude a leasee of building a roof or a temporary carport. But if someone put it on his site plan as a built structure in the beginning of a development, how would that need to be worded?
I don't know, the way you're talking, it sounds like, or maybe the way he talked. What was the word you used for that?
Casitas. It's like a outdoor screened room.
Okay. Do you know how to spell that? 'Cause I'm not sure.
CASITAS. CASITAS.
I'm not familiar with that. Maybe I'm.
Let me see if I can pull up his proposed.
As you all know, the reason we added that clause, or at least for discussion purposes, was to try to prevent people from just putting those
Building
RVs
decks.
permanently and living in them 6 months of the year or year round.
So maybe we can word it.
But this sounds like it would be something that could hook up, and I may be wrong, but allegedly to, or be a part of whoever stayed in that spot.
Right.
Wouldn't
So.
necessarily be a.
Right, so should we word it,
Well, I wonder if you could get around it a different way.
okay,
What if we, on the site plan or when it comes back, have it so that the portion with the casita is not actually part of the RV site rectangle? You know,
Okay.
it's a separate little piece. You know, it's not a freestanding lot, but it's a.
right,
In this case, it's more of like a part of the facilities rather than
Right,
a part of the RV lot.
mhm.
right,
I agree with that.
yeah.
Are these things would not be attached to the,
To the RV.
Would not be attached to the RV.
Okay, well, that's different.
And it would, the way I'm understanding it, he would present it on a site plan as a built structure.
It would be no different really than if you had a fire pit that people could use, or whatever.
Or
Let's say,
or pavilion or anything like that.
Right.
Or even like the bathhouse
Yeah.
structure or whatever,
Right.
even if it happened to be, but as long as it's not part of that rectangle where they're parking the RV, even if it's right next to it, it's not really.
It's
Right.
really just an amenity for.
So you don't think we need to reword that at all? We'll just leave it
No, I
as it
don't,
is?
You know, and there's a part of me that doesn't think there's really a problem with a roof over you know, if it's not really designed.
Well, like you said,
specifically
if
for
it's like a pavilion structure
Right.
with a picnic table,
But you don't want people backing in there underneath a pitched
Right,
roof.
right,
You don't want that.
right.
Because and they're not going to do that.
no. Let's see.
Yeah, I think I told you the first time we looked at this that, you know, I'm still probably somewhat naive about RV parks. I've only stayed in one once.
Yeah,
It
this
was
is,
a big parking area, and they had a wonderful pool and a wonderful, you know, shower, restroom facilities and all that sort of thing. But it was not the kind of place where somebody would stay more than a few days probably. I mean, it didn't have the amenities that you might find if you had one out by the lake.
that's a casita.
Folks, I pulled this up on my phone, and this is certainly not a lean-to or storage type building. I'm wondering if we could use a term along the line of permanent structures not included for human habitation or human occupancy, or not allowed. these are kinda like a party
Green
house,
porches are-
party room, is what I'm seeing
Even
Right,
though-
but
here.
people-
They're intended to be used by people.
Right, but people would rent them as
It's
part
yeah,
of
it's
their
really
stay,
meant for entertaining
and they might put
and not
cots in
having a
them
crowd of
and
people
sleep
in
in
your
them.
RV.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
No, we-
possible.
I mean, you know, I think if we say if it's not intended for human occupation, is that enough to filter out what we're trying to prevent?
Well, but you know, porches and steps aren't meant for occupation either. Is the problem?
But, you know, I think that what we're looking at here is, this goes back to having, RVs there permanently.
Right.
A permanent RV will, you know, have a deck, have a roof, that
Like
so
they have
steps up to it, that sort of thing, where we've got that covered kinda in the front where you can't have permanent more than 29 days.
I know what you're talking
I think it's like, if it comes in on a site plan and has it there, I think we're fine that way.
Yeah,
I
'cause to
agree.
me, it's more like it's a building.
And this is specifically addresses this stuff on an RV site,
Okay.
which is the 35 by 60 or somewhat larger. I changed a little bit of language in there for longer RVs. But,
So it's good the way it is.
yeah, you know, I think so. I think so.
So you don't want to restrict the owner from putting in permanent structures that are for common use and not rentable.
Right.
I
Well,
think
they're still for
since I agree with you on that, Mr. Pauls, you know, like fire pits and like a room for
Entertaining.
mosquitoes on
Mhm.
this evening or whatever.
Right, but these things that we're talking about are you know, intended for the occupant of the next door RV lot.
Right.
So it's almost like a mini kitchen and a living room with no sleeping spaces or
Right.
anything like that.
That's right.
So
But it's a rentable structure for them,
yes,
and so you want to allow that,
sure.
right? So you need to kind of create two different categories there, I think, to make sure.
Well, I think as
There's
long as
nothing
it's
you-
not part of the RV lot rectangle, then we're not restricting it in any way with this rule, the way it's written.
But it will be on the site.
Yeah.
But it won't be on the RV site.
No, it won't be on the pad.
Won't be on the pad. That's how you need to do it. Yes.
The site is the rectangle.
But this could be on the common property. That's the way I believe it's.
Okay, every site's gonna have a pad, but that's still the site. So we need to be careful how we word that, because if you put it, it can't be on the site.
But it can be right next to it.
But it's gonna be on the site.
Is it? How close is it gonna be?
I mean, I don't know how, I'll have to see it, but I promise
wish
you,
I
they're
had
not
a
gonna make
copy.
you rent two different sites. I mean, it's gonna be, some sites are gonna have those,
Yes.
and they'll be larger sites.
Yeah.
So it
But they're
can't-
still gonna be on, it won't be on the pad. It won't be on the pad they pull on to park their camper.
Well, what we're saying is it can't be on this site that's no smaller than 35 by 60. It can't be within that 35 by 60 rectangle.
That's
It-
designed to put some distance between the,
Between sites.
So anything outside that 35 by 60 or could be larger, we're not restricting.
No, it sounds like we're debating the option if you could put a casita between sites.
My feeling is it's a built structure, so it is subject to a site plan, and we approve a site plan and the structures within that site plan. So
It's also gonna be owned and maintained by the park owner, correct? Versus
the RV park owner and not the leasee.
Correct.
here's the way, the pad is the asphalt or concrete thing that the RV will
Right.
park on.
And that whole manila folder is the site.
Area surrounding it where they can operate with their grills and
I'm pretty sure it's on the,
chairs, you know, all
the
that sort of thing, and, but,
concept that he gave us.
Well, we just need to be clear if we're talking about a structure on that site or adjacent to it.
well,
It will be part of the site that is rented.
About what a site is and how big it needs to be.
as I
Here
understand
we're
what
saying
we're
that
talking
not
about,
allowed
it'll be
on
part
any
of the
site.
overall
So when I see it,
but not
that we're
within
restricting anything
this
within this minimum site size.
The
We're not
site is
restricting
this
anything that might be common
envelope
ground.
is in-
No, if you are renting a site with a pad and a casita, that is the site.
That is the site. You are correct.
Is this what you're talking about with casitas on the
Yes,
side?
yeah,
Okay.
there it is, right
Yeah.
there. So,
You're talking about, like, this is the whole site, this will be the pad.
That's what I was trying
Right.
to.
That's how it's gonna be. The pad will be on one side or the other, and then you'll have your
Lou,
space out in front of you.
So it sounds like we're heading towards,
here it is.
I'll see what we're heading towards. Yes. That is, I would call that on the site.
Yes.
And it's owned by the operator. It's not to be modified by anybody else. And it's part of the rental package.
Yes.
Now, question
That's
is,
how it will be.
if I had a site
is-
plan
Oh, so it is.
and I had
Yeah,
5 of them,
it's-
and
It's
they
part of
turned
the
out to
site.
be
Yeah.
amazing
will
successes,
be.
do I have to redo the site plan to put 5 more?
There is no way I could vote for or against us making rules on RV parking.
Yeah.
Probably resubmit it with, the additions on there, even though it
That
doesn't
it?
really make sense.
I wanna
Should, in your case, could the plan not be approved for them, whether they're built or not? Approve each site with
Right, I'm just
one,
wondering
and
if-
that way they only may build 5
If
of
the
them,
actual site
but then
line
they
could
could
come
come back,
down,
they'd be
you know,
approved if they wanted
to where
to come
this
in
isn't
and
on it.
replicate it on every site.
Or does it,
I mean, could that not be
you know what I'm
done?
saying?
That's the point.
If
The
this
front
is,
edge
I
is
would,
on.
if I were the owner, I would
But if
certainly
this
want
is the
some
site-
easy way to
why
add
couldn't
to
Better
that.
have
the
approval
site
and
for
not
the
need it,
RV
if need it, not have it.
not
You still have to get
encompass,
Say
permitted
tenants are
after
not
that,
permitted
right?
to construct
and have it just be in a
structures.
separate
That works.
There you
space
go.
That
next to it,
covers it right there.
that they
Yeah.
would,
What was that?
they would effectively rent or have
Tenants
use
are
for,
not allowed to
but
put permanent
it
structures,
wouldn't be
including
in that
roofs,
site rectangle.
decks, or leasees.
Leasees.
That covers.
When you first brought this up, just so you understand where I'm coming from, I
You
thought
was-
maybe you were talking about the
But
entire
leasees
RV park
are
site,
not allowed
but
to,
I wasn't
Okay.
having a problem with these.
Mr. Williams, what do you
casitas
think,
being located, on individual sites either.
why don't we say leasees are not allowed permanent structures?
Say that again,
The leasee is not allowed to build permanent structures.
okay.
And any structures are subject to approval of the planning commission.
Okay.
Well, so if I'm a savvy RV park owner, I
Mhm.
build sites that have steps on them
Mm-hmm,
and say, hey, this site has structure, I own it.
mm-hmm.
So do you intend to limit the owner from building what you're concerned about, which is roofs over RVs, for
Mhm.
example? You don't want them to have the right to do that either. Or,
why not?
Yes,
Okay.
I don't have a problem with
theirs.
the RV park owner building structures that have been approved by us to build. My concern, the main reason why this was to be put in here is because you go into RV parks where there are 6-month lease, or really year after
The
year.
29-day stay takes care of
Exactly.
every bit of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, for instance, Caney Creek, longtime leasees there are building decks.
Riley Creek.
Onto their structure.
Same thing.
On top
Right.
to their RVs.
The only reason I put that in there for starters, for discussion purposes, because none of this is etched in stone, is because that tends to, those permanent steps and roofs and that sort of thing tend to be tailored towards those who leave their RVs there permanently.
Right.
And it was like a secondary way,
Right. Right.
the 29 days is one thing, if it's enforceable,
Mm-hmm.
but, that was another way to do it. There's some RV parks I've seen, there's one in
So we'll
Swanson
ju-
Marina in Jefferson County where there's RVs that have been there 30 years or more.
So at the end of this sentence, we'll just put except subject to planning commission approval.
Okay.
Are we gonna have a criteria for our approval? Objective criteria?
and a threshold for kicking in approval,
Threshold for what?
for requiring approval? I mean, you don't wanna tie the RV owner's hands in making some structures that make sense. You know, if he's gonna add a bridge, for example, over Little Creek,
Well, I
Is that a
mean, we
structure?
require those approvals anyway on any commercial site.
Where did they say they just did that one? They just did an RV park somewhere around here. Do y'all, anybody remember where they said they did it?
Oh, it was in Sevierville.
Okay, I say we field trip. I mean, I'm dead serious. There's no way that we can vote on this because there's so many different if, ands, or buts on everything that we've got here. There's no way I could vote for an ordinance on it. There's no way.
Oh, you don't want an ordinance on RV
I don't. I
parks?
mean, no. I think we do, but I don't think we know enough about the situation to do it.
Well, that's why we pulled from counties that already have existing parks.
And I agree with that. But if you go to Meigs County and you go down River Road and you start going through those campgrounds, there's not many of them that hadn't been there 100 years that are halfway run down anyway.
Right, which is why they put in these new regulations to prevent that from happening. Those are already grandfathered in.
Sure.
Those are already done.
Sure.
Anything new
Right.
is subject to these rules because they don't want more of those places.
Okay.
And that's really, again, why we're doing this is because the one existing one we have has these
Right.
issues.
Right.
But I think going back to what you said, the 29 days covers it.
The 29 days covers any permanent structure from a
From a
A tenant.
leasee, from a tenant,
Yeah.
Any other comments? If there's no other comments, then I guess the next step is to get a final draft of these. Come back one more time, and then this goes to council.
It would go to council for 2 readings and a public hearing. It's an amendment to the zoning text.
I'm sure council will have
Yeah.
some, maybe some corrections and changes as well.
But, you know, if you look at the last page, administration,
Mm-hmm.
Guy enhanced that just a little bit, as you can see, with the bold type. And I put in the last statement, a certificate of occupancy may be revoked for non-compliance with the zoning ordinance and building codes. And that would be
Yeah, it makes no sense having these.
29 days is one thing.
Yeah, it makes no sense having regulations if there's no enforcement clause.
At this point, do you all agree with the strike-through stuff that it should be deleted? Did I get that right? As you recall?
Yeah.
Do we have
Right.
access to counsel, legal counsel?
Yeah.
He reads over every ordinance that we pass.
Has he had a chance to look at this yet?
he
No,
won't.
because we haven't went through our vetting of it.
But that'll be part of,
Mm-hmm.
That'd be part when it goes to council, when he gets it, he'll look at it and say, oh, you can't do this, or yes, you can.
yeah, I just wanna make sure it's enforceable.
Yes.
Well, I did have a question about the on-site storage.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that targeted towards?
On-site, so storage of RVs for long periods of time, storage of boats.
So we don't intend to prevent the RV owner from having a shed where he keeps his equipment, and pressure washer.
The park owner.
The park owner.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Well,
That would be, in my opinion, accessory building to the.
On site plan.
well, I think, be
but-
specific about what you want to limit, I think, in that statement would be.
Yeah, I think you're really trying to limit
Start on-site storage by tenants.
storage of vehicles and storage of, you know, if you have storage for tenants to store their extra junk, then that sort of implies that they're there for a while, you know, so.
I just don't want to limit the owners from
Right.
storing their stuff.
Are we gonna revisit this when the marina comes up too?
The proposed marina?
Mm-hmm.
That's subject to TVA, not us.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know how that worked.
Yeah,
because-
TVA supersedes
Okay.
planning commission.
I wasn't sure how that, if we had to do ordinances for that too.
No, that's through a 26A permit, just like someone building a dock.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's open to public comment, that's environmental study.
Right.
It goes through a huge process.
I guess on-site storage by and for tenants
Mm-hmm.
is not allowed because, unless you feel like there ought to be places to have boats stored and all that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, if a lot of people pull a boat behind their RV, and they'll have to store their trailer somewhere while they're there, because I'm sure they'll rent them a slip to keep their boat out while they're staying there. So keep that in mind too.
Well, we've struck that out. On-site storage of boats, vehicles.
Okay.
Actually, we struck through all of it and just put on-site storage. Like, you're right, it should say on-site storage is not allowed by the leasee. Or something like that.
But that would allow the owner to have on-site storage.
And he showed an on-site storage,
Right.
not in the RV park, but of an adjacent, completely separate area.
Unless we say something different, the RV park owner could store boats, for example, on that piece of property.
I don't think we can't think of it, we have to think about all, not just the specific one, so I get where you're coming from.
So I guess it's important and it's difficult to know exactly what we want to require and what we want to prevent.
Well, and he did, that was previously when we spoke about that was one that he brought up. He's like, oh, wait a minute, we need to have on-site, I don't want to disallow on-site storage of the owner.
Right.
What we were trying to prevent was on-site storage of, really, you're talking about a long-term tenant, though.
Right.
We're not allowing long-term tenancy.
Well, this is just another backstop to prevent that,
Right.
really.
Right. So I don't know how to word it. What do you all think?
I don't know what people would do with boats. Let's say there was one on the lake and they had boats and it didn't fit on their site.
Well, most places like that would have a boat storage for tenants.
Yeah, that's what I'm
But
thinking
again,
of.
the 29 days is going to strike out what we're trying to stop.
Right.
I mean, in all honesty, it is.
And, right.
So are we preventing, do we wish to prevent owners of RV parks from having a part of their business model is storing boats and RVs?
I don't think we
No,
do.
I don't think we are. I think if it comes back with a site plan and how they're gonna, where they're gonna put it at and what they're gonna do, I don't think this ordinance doesn't do anything to that.
If I remember correctly, they had it over by the public launch area.
Yeah, it was a separate,
It was
completely
It wasn't
different-
part of the RV park.
Right.
no,
No.
it was just a storage, and they had it like it was fenced in.
Mhm.
They have RV storage down here. It's just to the,
Well, I mean, it's just like a
east of
marina.
it.
There's slope storage and there's dry storage. So it
Right.
does come back to whether you want RV and boat storage within an RV park.
Well, it also doesn't prevent somebody from designating an area adjacent to the RV park.
Right, it doesn't affect that at all.
If somebody, not just the marina, but if somebody else has an RV park that's, as long as it, meets the 2 acres for the RV
Mhm.
park, and if they got another acre next door,
Mm-hmm.
they can store all the boats and RVs they want to.
As big as that place is, they will have a dry storage.
Yeah, well, yeah, the marina.
You hope they do.
Well, no,
anyway.
it showed dry storage,
Okay.
but we're not,
That's not part of the RV park, so.
right,
Right,
it's
right.
not.
So Mr. Pickle, how about if we said something to the effect of on-site storage is not allowed within the RV park?
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
that's-
would be okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We don't run into somebody going, well, I'm staying here 29 days and I'm gonna store it for 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Great wording.
I'm worried about the definition of the word stay. Maximum length of stay is 29 days.
Mm-hmm.
If I was nefarious type of person, and maybe I am. Is it sufficient to go stay somewhere else in a motel every 29 days and leave my camper there?
No, you just change sites.
Yeah,
And
they would be
They just
required,
you just change sites.
yeah, every
But
29 days.
no, wait a minute now. I'm asking you, if I stayed a night in a hotel, is that sufficient?
Well, the
Well,
stay
because
is
So is it a stay of a
of the
person
vehicle.
or of the vehicle?
The camper has to leave. The RV has to leave.
Do we say that there?
I think to your point, lease might be a better word. than
Yes.
stay.
Right.
All right, and leases get extended and renewed.
Well, you'd have a maximum 29-day lease on that slip, that site. Your 29 days is up, you lease another one,
You got to move.
and you move.
So do we say that the camper or vehicle has to vacate the site every 29 days?
Yes.
Do we say that? Do we include this?
He's asking, is it in writing?
It's not in writing. I know it's not.
No, you're asking if that's how we need to word it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, however we need to word it to where someone is not staying on that site for 12 to 24, 42, whatever months. That's the way it needs to be worded.
42 years.
And I think the point being, if you lease it for 29 days, whether you're there or not, the clock's still ticking,
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, it's about the RV, not the person.
Yeah.
I changed that.
Okay.
Mr. Owens, I think that's well taken, your point.
So it will say maximum length of stay is 29 days per term or per,
I put down the maximum length of a lease is 29 days.
okay.
But we all know that they're gonna move from
Per site.
one.
I
was
think it
gonna
needs to
say-
be per site.
At a specific site.
Mm-hmm.
per site.
But we don't really care if they move, 2 doors down or,
Right, actually, you're right. We don't care if they stay in that space. The purpose of it was that we could collect occupancy tax. If it's more than 29 days, we cannot, and there's no property tax on that site. It's not,
Good point, they could renew the lease every 29 days and stay right where they are.
exactly.
This is sort of like a parking meter, a 2-hour parking meter.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean you can't park on Cumberland Avenue or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't require them to move their equipment and their stuff every 29 days, then don't you end back up in the situation where it becomes a semi-permanent residence?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, but you'd still get the revenue.
Well,
because-
I'm all for
We don't
revenue.
But Mr. Tinson's assertion that all these extra buildings get to be enforced by enforcing a 29-day stay. that
Per
doesn't work
site.
if we allow them to stay in that same place.
I don't think, we don't care how long they stay.
Then if we don't care, then we need to flesh out maybe the buildings, because the 29 days will not automatically restrict that.
You're talking about like the roofs and decks?
Yeah.
Well, I've got a plan that as much money as they're putting into this RV park and that property, I don't think they're gonna make it look trashy.
Well, we're not
They're-
worried about that.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah,
But if
not a
somebody else
problem.
comes in, I see what you're saying. I thought we were going to do it per site. If you make them physically move, they're not going to be one. If somebody's staying at that place 29, and again, I know we're not just talking about this place, but I see what you're saying.
Mhm.
They need to have to physically move their equipment every 29 days.
And are people who do this?
These people know that. Yes,
Yes.
they know that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, because and another thing that you could get is when they do, of course, I know TVA's not going to be here long, but these plants, when they do outages and these guys travel, they look for a nice place to stay.
Yep.
And if they're going to be here more than 29 days, they know.
Mhm.
They know on 27 they're going to start packing up and find them another spot because they know.
So
But
should
it needs to be, they got to move sites, or what you're saying is going to happen.
Yeah, okay.
So the lease be 29 days, but you can't lease
Maximum
it,
lease 29 days per site.
and you can't lease the same site consecutive.
There you go. Oh, that's the word I was looking for, consecutive. Site cannot be,
Least consecutive terms or
consecutive terms, something like that.
Occupied.
well, no, that gets back to your.
Yeah, yeah.
You're just gonna leave for a day.
Site cannot be leased consecutively.
More than one term.
Ooh, Sandy's gonna have a field day.
He'll fix us. He'll
I
fix us
promise you
good.
he will.
Anything else? All right, so we'll look for the next version of this in our next. Do we have to vote on this? Planning Commission does. It's a vote on a recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, so next month we'll come back with a final draft, have Sandy look over it. We'll vote, and then vote to send it on to council for 2 readings and a public hearing.
I'll try to fix this in the next couple of days and email you a copy.
Great,
And that way you can
everyone
tell
can,
me whether we're okay with it, and then it can go to Sandy, I guess, David?
Yeah, I was gonna recommend, why don't, once you get a final draft, go ahead and send that to Sandy, let him start looking over it, so we don't have to release the council for him to
Right,
start
absolutely.
red marking it, so.
I'm sure he can.
If he could have a chance to review it before it comes back next month, planning commission, for a final recommendation, that'd be good.
mm-hmm,
And then we can, that should give us enough time, like David suggested, to get it out to the planning commission.
yeah,
And hopefully final form.
yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, next agenda item. We need to elect a vice chair. Do I have a motion or nomination for a vice chair?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Wade Love as vice chair.
Second.
Is there a second? Mr.
Third.
Tipton, second.
Who made that second, I'm sorry?
Mr. Tipton.
That's what happens when you don't show up.
It'll teach him to be absent.
It's kinda hard to get anybody to complain when I'm not here.
That's happened to me twice. Actually happened to me on this, if you all remember.
Does your nomination also serve as a motion?
It does.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Chair Wright,
Yes.
Secretary Pickle,
Yes.
Mayor Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Frog,
Yes.
Mr. Qualls.
Absolutely.
You can't ask Mr. Lovin, but Mr. Owens
Yes.
and Mr. Tipton.
He'd be voted down anyway.
There's nothing else. Meeting's adjourned.
Yeah, see what
Should we
happens
tell him,
here.
or should we just let him find out next
I'm
meeting?
so sorry you didn't get a packet. I don't know what happened.
It was delivered by a police
when-
officer.
William
last
calls the
month.
roll.
Is
He
that
can
how
find
normal
out.
It gets delivered?
Dr. Roy,
Okay.
he said that he put it at your business Monday morning.
Well, he may have.
Yeah, he said that he's the one that delivered it. I asked him when he was.
Okay, good, thank you.